It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back. You're tuned into your Feel Good Breakfast Show. This is Expresso only on SABC3. Now, tis the season for allergies, and we all know about common allergies such as pollen, dust, insect stings, and also certain foods. However, some people react to some very unusual allergens, and we have the top 5 unusual allergies for you this morning. The first one being water. Can you believe people are actually allergic to water? It's called aquagenic urticaria, and it often experiences itching or hives within 5 minutes of contact with water, either tap water or seawater, but it usually clears up within 15 minutes to half an hour. Then exercise. Yes, people can actually be allergic to exercise, sometimes getting as severe as a sudden drop in blood pressure and also shortness of breath, which could be very, very dangerous. The sun is another one. People can be allergic to the sun as well, but and it normally occurs stinging, itching that appears within 30 minutes of contact with the sun. Cell phones as well, something we use every single day. People react to the nickel in cell phones. Luckily, not all cell phones contain nickel. And then, of course, if you think that an allergic reaction to certain foods are bad, how about this guy? His name is Caleb Bushenskut, and he's allergic to every food and drink out there. I mean, can you imagine that? It's so rare that doctors are yet to find a name for the condition, but his diet consists of water, ice, and a specific brand of lemonade, and he has to get fed his nutrients straight into his stomach. Now, that is bizarre, absolutely bizarre. But this morning, we're sitting down with Mariska van Aswegen, spokesperson of allergy medicine provider Pharma Dynamics. She's with us in studio to talk about those allergies, specifically another unusual allergy that you might not be aware of, caffeine. I think that's some bad news for all of you caffeine addicts like myself as well. Mariska, thank you so much for joining me. I can't believe caffeine could be an allergen. You'll notice I never stray too far from my Superman cup filled with a nice cup of coffee, but it is really unusual. What are the signs and symptoms that you actually have a caffeine allergy?
And I think you're right, is that not a lot of people are aware of caffeine that can be allergenic. And that's because sometimes the symptoms occur only a couple of hours after you've consumed caffeine. So you don't always associate the symptoms with the caffeine that you've taken in. And basically the symptoms are the normal symptoms that you've mentioned earlier. It can lead to sneezing, difficulty breathing, it can lead to an itchy or scratchy throat, heart palpitations, etc. So the normal allergic symptoms that we experience when we eat other foods that we are allergic to. But I think the most important one that we should look at is the fact that caffeine allergies are also referred to as cerebral allergies, and that's because it has psychiatric responses in some people that are highly sensitive towards caffeine. So that can lead to lack of concentration and comprehension. It can actually lead to aggression, hyperactivity, and then also a disorganized thought processes. So that's why it's quite important to take into account the amount of coffee or caffeine or caffeinated drinks that you take in, because that can lead to these psychiatric symptoms.
That is very interesting. So what is it in caffeine? Is it the caffeine itself that causes these allergic reactions in people? I mean, what causes it?
It is basically the caffeine itself that causes these reactions. And when you are hypersensitive to an allergen, your body struggles to metabolize it. So, and that's what happens, and then your body overreacts, and you can cause inflammation and a hypersensitivity towards that specific allergen, in this case caffeine. And then also your as I said, you can't metabolize the caffeine, and that is why you will then react by producing antibodies, your immunoglobulin E antibodies, which your doctor can test for. So you can do a blood test to actually determine if you are allergic to caffeine.
Well, luckily, I don't think I'm allergic to coffee. I know that, when I drink too much coffee, you get the heart palpitations. I think that's the first sign as well. But it is, of course, exam season as well. Students are pulling all-nighters at the moment. They're up studying, knocking back the coffee. I mean, that is pretty much a health risk, right?
It is absolutely, especially if you're not used to consuming a lot of caffeine. And that's, you've got different schools of thought. The one says that if you're not used to consuming a lot of caffeine and all of a sudden you drink too much coffee or energy drinks, the energy drinks have very high concentrations of caffeine, then your body can overreact towards that caffeine, and you can present with allergic symptoms. But medical literature also showed that if you are exposed to high concentrations over a long period of time, you can actually also develop a hypersensitivity towards that allergen. So there are different schools of thought, but for students, definitely, if they're not used to consuming a high amount of caffeine, then it can be problematic, and it can start to affect their learning process, as we've said, the psychiatric symptoms responses. Unfortunately, they often contribute those symptoms to being overtired, so they grab another cup of coffee, and that just jeopardizes and continues to jeopardize the body over the time.
And I think on a side note, all the sugar that goes in the coffee as well can be just as bad.
Absolutely.
So advice from your side for our coffee addicts, for our students out there, I mean, how would you approach this issue? issue?
Well, you've mentioned earlier water and water allergies. If you're not allergic to water, water is a good substitute to caffeine. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. But water actually sort of energizes your body, and it allows it to be charged electrically, your brain, so that you can study more effectively and productively. Healthy diet, so important. Include nuts and berries and avocados and fatty fish in your diet. Start before exam time, not only while you're writing and studying for the exam, but about a week or two before the exam. Start with a healthy diet. Take regular breaks, 5 minutes every hour at least, because that allows your body to produce glucose, and glucose is the fuel that you need to be able to study. And then also, you know, the night before you go to bed or before you study, try to focus on the more difficult work, because that makes it easier for you to remember the day thereafter. And distractions. Cell phones, social media, music, put it away rather. Leave it for the 5-minute break and take that as your break time, but then get back into studying straight away.
Mariska, thank you so very much. Mariska joining us from Pharma Dynamics, talking about those unusual allergies. And a side note, for our students out there, don't leave the studying up until the last minutes. On that note, I might have another sip of coffee. Time for the news.
Join Pharma Dynamics' Circle of Trust and save up to 50% on your medicine. Pharma Dynamics, effective, affordable healthcare.